We have found ourselves in a sleepy town on a dark and stormy night, and something nefarious is afoot in the shadows that surround us. We rush ahead just as a flash of lightning strikes and illuminates the imposing sight of a clock tower in the center of town. Welcome, weary travelers, to Vaguely Scientific. You can execute me if you want to, but in addition to being Derek, I am also the Goblin. And I claim Slayer and shoot Jim the Scientist. There is no effect. Hi, Jim.
I'm bulletproof.
Yeah, that's good. It's good because I just shot you.
Yeah, right?
And I would like to juggle our guest this week as all four demons and Ben Burns. Hello, Ben.
Oh no, please don't juggle me. I'll get motion sickness.
Well, I'm expecting to get a 2. We'll see how that goes. Welcome to Vaguely Scientific. We are about to receive 2 questions. The aim of the show is to answer these questions using vaguely scientific reasoning. The show is split into 2 phases, question 1 and question 2. They play out mostly the same. There is a lot of information in this show, however, some of it might be wrong. Before we begin, I'd like to nominate Jim to give us today's fun science fact of the day. Jim?
All right. This one is tangentially about clocks, I suppose. It says, during the 1970s and 1980s, electric-powered quartz watches were becoming very popular. They had fewer moving parts than mechanical watches, and they were actually much more accurate. The abrupt market shift from mechanical watches to digital was referred to as the Quartz Revolution or the Quartz Crisis if you were a Swiss watchmaker.
And we still have digital watches today.
Yeah.
Although I feel like they're kind of less popular now, right? There's almost kind of a rebellion against digital. And we're sort of going back to tactility. I know a lot of cars and vehicles are getting rid of all of the touchscreens and going back with knobs and dials because, you know, it's just easier in the heat of the moment, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I hate touchscreens. I'm on record of saying that, so.
I think they have their place.
Yeah. It's wild, though, because they say, like, oh, you shouldn't play with your phone in the car. And then they put a big touch screen in your car that you have to play with to change the song or the heat or anything like that.
Yeah, that's fair.
I was going to say, it just makes dashboards look boring as well, right?
Yeah.
When you look at a dashboard, you've got all these dials, all these physical... It's almost like the joy of playing a pinball machine. There's all this stuff happening.
Yeah.
And now you get in like a modern vehicle and it's just a grey or black plastic nothing with a big iPad stuck in the middle of it.
Yeah.
It's just depressing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know what? Modern pinball machines are really disappointing because all of the counters and scorekeeping are all a digital screen now.
Oh.
And it used to all be like, you know, bobs and levers and stuff.
Yeah. Mechanical switches are great.
I get why they took it away, though. Like, maintaining a pinball machine is a nightmare, I imagine.
Oh, for sure.
I don't want to imply that I have any experience in that area.
Just looking at one, I mean, it has to be hard.
It's falling by the wayside, similar to like piano tuning. Like, just nobody does it anymore, and eventually nobody's going to know how.
Yeah. You can tune a piano, but you can't tune a pinball machine.
Yeah.
Not with that attitude.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
with that attitude. Well, speaking of things that need attitude to happen, that was a terrible segue. Sometimes I do.
It's not your worst.
I don't know.
Leave it in.
Leave it in. Oh, it's all staying in. We own our mistakes here. I do think we should probably move on to our first question this week. And question 1 is, could Rapunzel happen?
I mean, like, can you lock a child in a tower for many years? Yeah, I suppose. Like,
You used to do it all the time over here in England. We've got like sort of our most famous landmark.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's fair. Yeah. I was really interested where the first thing was going to go, because when I started looking into how I wanted to answer this question, because I like to deconstruct the questions and find weird ways to answer them, I thought, well, everybody's going to be talking about hair.
Oh yeah, which I am, to be clear.
And so I looked in a few things, and the only note on that I had was, you could probably do that, but Child Protective Services would be called today.
Oh, it's so wild how many grim fairy tales would, end with the call to the CPS.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was kind of their point, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it was,
I don't think they were suggesting that you should do these things.
It was saying, these are bad things to happen, and here's why. Yeah.
The thing that I thought was the most interesting about this question, though, was just that as I was reading through, because a lot of times you read about Grimm fairy tales and they take a lot of creative liberties and they make things a lot darker than they normally are and stuff. And I was pleasantly surprised to find out that this particular fairy tale sort of survives very, very cleanly from its transition from, I believe it was the original like Italian roots to the Germanic, which I was really surprised by, like I said.
Yeah, I have a little bit of history, I guess a synopsis for... I like to give synopses of IPs whenever we bring them up on this show, and I feel like most people probably know Rapunzel, but in case there are people who don't, Rapunzel is the Grimm brothers' adaptation of a French fairy tale called Percinet, which was written in 1698. It was written by a woman named Charlotte Rose de Caumont de la Force, and I apologize for my French pronunciation or lack thereof. And it's about a girl locked in a tower with really long hair, and Prince climbs up the hair, and shenanigans ensue, right? Key difference, as Jim alluded to, the key difference between Percinet and Rapunzel, from what I could tell, is that in Rapunzel, the captor is an evil witch who is pretty clearly an evil figure, whereas in Percinet, it is a fairy that holds Percinet rather than Rapunzel captive in this tower, but isn't 100% evil and is largely kind of depicted as being like an overprotective parent more than an evil witch.
Well, I think that's another aspect of the story that we have to think about, is that in a lot of the real world applications, there really just aren't sorcerers or witches or anything like that. So I don't know if you could be a witch and then lock a person in a tower.
I think you could be a witch.
I think that's somewhat debatable. Probably not quite as debatable as many things, but there is definitely a portion of the world in which we live where people genuinely believe in sorcery and witchcraft.
True.
And I'm while I would like to say that I am mostly a man of science, I'm agnostic in all things, basically. So I'm open to the possibility, however monumentally slim it might be, that there is some guy out there just firing off magic missiles and we don't know about it.
That's fair. I like the idea that it is specifically magic missiles.
Yeah, and it's just one guy.
You can only cast from the D&D spellbook.
Yes. Yeah, only D&D wizards exist.
Yes. And there's only like 3 of them. They all live in Cape Town, South Africa for some reason.
I can definitely see a crazy sort of druid type guy who is like of a pagan faith locking someone in a tower or attempting to rescue someone in a tower. In fact, it would happen in Florida. I think we can all agree.
That is really true. And it's nice to know that even though you are from across the pond, as they say, you are well aware and well acquainted with the exploits of Florida man.
Oh yeah, I've been to Florida multiple times. So it's not even some kind of there's not even any doubt in my mind as to whether or not it's really like that. I've seen it firsthand.
Conveniently enough, that could just happen at Disneyland. Or Disney World,
Yeah, actually, it probably does, right? Or at least it's reenacted there.
Yeah.
It's reenacted. Well, yeah,
we just saw it on some street, a few miles outside of the park, and we're like, that'll be perfect. The kids will love it.
Separate from Disney, separate from the Disney parks, there are people being locked in towers there.
Yeah. That's what goes on in Apalachicola.
This is getting more depressing than I expected it to be. Okay.
Shall we talk about the hair element? I think that's where the science is really at, right?
Well, I'd like to, before we get into the hair, I'd like to give you just a couple of the other random avenues that I wanted to explore, because most of my notes are about hair. And so one of the things about the origin of Rapunzel, the story starts with the Rapunzel's mother having a craving for a leafy green called rampion, which in Germany is called Rapunzel. This is just where the name comes from. So I looked up that pregnancy cravings, those can happen, right?
Yes.
That's a real thing that happens. And then another thing that less often explored, toward the end of the story, the prince falls from the tower and has his eyes pierced by briar.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wanders the wilderness for years with no medical attention. And I'm thinking infection would probably set in there.
Yeah.
That would be hard.
I did forget about that aspect of the story, and I think it's important to note that not only would an infection set in, but also if he's just wandering through the wilderness, what's he eating? Why isn't something eating him? You know, it's the Black Forest, right? There's probably wolves.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is it? I mean, I guess this comes down to one of those headcanon things, right? It's like, are we to assume that the author left out what they thought was the boring part, where
it's shoe leathered out there, yeah,
like family help him out, some like family of woodcutters or something, and like, oh, we'll take this guy in, he can help tend the fire or whatever. Is that a thing that are we allowed to assume those things? What are the rules of this show?
Now I'm envisioning like now I'm envisioning like a sort of spin-off fairy tale that happens in these wilderness years. He comes across a friendly family. It's very much like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, except it's this prince guy. He blunders into this place with all these sort of semi-magical creatures, and they take care of him, and I don't know, something else happens, I'm sure. Shenanigans ensue, as you said.
We should pitch this to Netflix. I'm 100% certain they will be willing to make this and then cancel it after 1 or 2 seasons.
Yeah, well, that's the idea. I didn't intend to bring up Into the Woods, but now that we're there, the Sondheim musical Into the Woods, the prince that falls in love with Rapunzel also falls in love with Snow White.
Oh,
because it's Prince Charming, right? So it's the same guy. One more note before we get to the hair. It is the ending of the story is that the prince and Rapunzel are ultimately reunited years later when it is revealed that Rapunzel has given birth to the prince's children and has been raising them alone. And when they meet each other, tears of joy fall from her eyes and land in his, restoring his vision. And that's the one sticking point, I think. That couldn't happen.
Yeah,
that's
First
the
of
one.
all, are these children all the same age?
It depends on the version, I guess.
Like, yeah, they're triplets, Prince. And he's like, well, why are they all different sizes?
No, they're all yours, I swear.
Yeah. Don't think about it too hard. I got to say, this is like a rare Grimm Brothers happy ending, because I don't know too many other happy endings from the Brothers Grimm.
Yeah, it's still dark, but it does have a happy ending.
Yeah, like someone's always turning into sea foam or getting eaten by creatures, and it's like, they found their way back to each other.
That's Hans Christian Andersen that did
Whoops.
Little Mermaid.
I mean, I don't know how happy it is to be a blind man in medieval Germany, to be honest. There is that.
But he gets unblinded.
He does. That's a good point.
That's the happy bit. Then, yeah.
That is unfortunately the one bit that is definitely not scientifically possible, unless you guys are about to tell me that the tear duct secretes some kind of some secret about human biology that I don't know.
That I was. I wish. I actually looked up eye transplants to see if there was any real basis for that, and from what I'm reading, as of 2023, the world's first whole eye transplant was performed, but the patient did not regain their vision. So if the eyes were actually damaged by thorns, it seems like they're just going to be permanently blind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how you'd hook up an optic nerve. That seems beyond what we can do right now.
What level of damage can the eye self-repair?
Oh, that's a fantastic question.
Because how damaged are these eyes by thorns? Like, if it's just a scratch or something, like, would his vision come back naturally eventually? I mean, you've got to presume it's pretty bad damage, right?
Yeah,
because he's wandering. How long's he wandering the forest for?
Just years.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you that, people can get like a scratched cornea, and as long as they take good care of it and keep it clean and things like that, after a while, the scratch will heal. I will also tell you, to this day, I'm very angry about this. About 6-ish years ago, this was during the pandemic, which is why I wasn't able to get it addressed as effectively as I wanted to. One day, my eyelid stuck to my eye and it tore like part of my eye skin, and now I need glasses. Before that, I had 20/15 vision. I'm very salty about this. It's been 6 years.
My balls tighten up hearing that story. that is awful. What a terrible thing to wake up to.
Apologies to any listeners who think eye things are weird.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, I should have put like a warning in front of that one. Like I didn't. It just makes me angry is all, because like it healed for the most part, but it's not healed enough that I don't now need glasses, and I'm just grumpy about it to this day.
So I'd like to touch on this thing that I think I interrupted, and I apologize for that, but I want to get back to the hair, because the most famous part of Rapunzel is her hair is incredibly long, such that she can lower it from the window of this tower, and both the witch and the prince can climb up it to get inside the tower, right?
Yeah. It's a lengthy lock.
Yeah, so I think I'm uniquely positioned to talk about this because I have very, very long dreadlocks that are quite thick.
Oh,
and up until recently, they'd grown until they were touching the floor. I had them trimmed because that's a problem. But up until quite recently, I had 6 foot long, thick dreadlocks, and they were basically rope coming off the back of my head.
Wow,
that's interesting.
So it's here's the thing. Every cat that I've ever had, and I've had many, has climbed those dreads. It is completely possible for a cat-sized creature to climb human hair a decent amount. The issue comes with the weight, right? Mm-hmm. Hair can only hold so much weight.
Right.
And absolutely, like, I have put too much force onto a dread and accidentally like ripped it in half before.
Oh, okay.
That's a thing that's happened. So there's definitely no way that my hair as it is right now could be climbed by an adult male wearing armor, no less, presumably, if he's a knight. Well, let's assume he's taken that off. But it would definitely break. But I reckon you could find a way to harden it like you would treat any kind of rope. Mm-hmm. Because rope isn't just a load of weaved stuff together that hey presto, there's a rope, right? They treat it with like lacquer and hardening stuff so that it really holds. There's no doubt in my mind that you could do that to your hair. I seriously doubt Rapunzel up in her tower is spending her time, hardening her hair on the off chance that it needs to be used as rope. Yeah. But I don't know. What are the parameters here? How hypothetical can we get?
To be fair,
because I think it's possible.
To be fair, it was regularly used as rope, so maybe that's all she's doing.
That is a good point. Yeah.
She's just up there just combing resin into her hair.
The witch specifically uses it as her entry into the tower. So I wonder if the witch is like, make sure you lacquer your hair every morning.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, there we go. That makes we've analyzed this more than any other humans in history. But I think we can reasonably say that is possible.
Welcome to the show, Ben.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. So I did read that if you have sort of the right texture and variety of hair, and it's all genetics based, but I was reading that some of the strongest hair in the world, like a full head of hair, could support the weight of like 2 grown elephants. What did it say? It was like 12 tons. And that, I assume, would be imperial tons. But it's like, if you have the right style and texture, and also I imagine if you were able to sort of do some kind of like rope weaving trick, because, you have to weave the fibers of a rope together, then I think that it's possible for someone to climb up your hair as long as you are careful about it. The really tricky thing, because like if you imagine you take a piece of hair that maybe fell out of your head or whatever, and you kind of wrap it around your fingers and you pull, it has a decent amount of strength to it. And the tricky part is going to be where the hair connects. Because if you take a hair on your head and just yank it, more often than not, it's coming out by the root. It's not breaking.
Yeah, that's the failure point.
It's the scalp, right? It's
the
scalp that's the issue. You would have to hold on to it. Like I reckon I could, if I were to get all of my dreadlocks and weave them all into one single giant mega dread, and then dangle that out of a window, but just hold on to it so that it's not relying on the scalp where it's weakest. I'm pretty sure that you could climb up that.
Yeah, so what I was reading here, human hair is comparable to spider web in that its tensile strength is actually really high, but we usually deal with single strands of hair, so they're still not gonna help. But like, it is comparable apparently to steel in that it can hold a lot. So if you made a rope of human hair that was 2 inches thick, it could lift a car.
Huh.
Penn and Teller did this on a long time, like 2010, 2011, on a show called Penn and Teller Tell a Lie, where this guy had long braided hair, and they cut it off, and they suspended a 1966 Mustang from it. And Penn Jillette stood directly under the car to show that it was safe for him to do that.
I don't care if I knew the science behind that. I would never.
Yeah. It's not worth your life, is it?
Not worth it.
Just to be smug.
Just to be smug. Well, I might disagree on that one.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, the thing is the scalp. And I mean, I know that there are a lot of instances where, you know, people get their hair caught in machine. This is grim and gruesome, so just a forewarning on this one, because I didn't do it for the eyeball. But it's like, you know, you get your hair caught in a machine or like a photocopier. I don't know, but like people say like, oh, you know, it'll rip part of your scalp, and I'm like, I don't want to know about that. But it's true. You know, it is a thing that can happen. Is your scalp will give up before your hair, which I think is fascinating.
Yes, that's where the failure point is. On the connections. So I think it's interesting that, as Ben, you're saying, if you combined all your dreads into a mega dread, which is a phrase that is going to stick with me now. The idea that in many versions of the Rapunzel story, it specifically says that her hair is braided and that she hangs it from a hook at the top of the tower. Because that was another thought I had, is if a person was climbing your hair, Ben, I don't know how many people have climbed your hair. But I imagine it would be just cats. Okay. Does that hurt when they do that? Like they're pulling on your...
No, not really, because cats don't weigh very much. And I have, I'm really fortunate. I have a really full, strong head of hair for a guy in his mid to late 30s.
Sure.
So I'm quite lucky in that regard. I imagine for a lot of people it might tug a little bit. But yeah, no, it doesn't bother me. But I mean, also, like, if I'm sat down or something, the hair is itself kind of dangling over the arm of a chair or something like that. So it kind of has its own inadvertent hook anyway. It's very rare that they're like hanging off of my scalp.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So the next thing that I looked at was the length of Rapunzel's hair, which I've got varied responses, but in the original Brothers Grimm fairy tale, the tower is said to be 20 ells high, which, from the amount of research I did, translates to approximately 73 feet and 4 inches, which is about 22 meters.
Wow.
That's not crazy high.
Right? It's a few stories.
Yeah.
In Disney's Tangled, the tower is interpreted to be 35 to 40 feet, so about even half that. And her hair is specifically said to be 70 feet long, which...
I think one of the things that we have neglected to talk about is, where does she keep 70 feet of hair in the tower and still have room to walk around and,
how much is she walking around in that tower?
I guess that's fair. I mean, I assume that she probably has she's going to walk over and get a little bit of like milk and cookies, and she's going to walk over to her bed and she's going to go to the bathroom and stuff. And it's like, maybe all of the 70 feet of the tower, she just feeds her hair down into like a hole in the center of the room, and it just dangles down into this hollow chunk in the center of the tower, and she can just do her daily business walking around in the floor like normal.
She probably just operates like a vacuum cleaner, right? It's just plugged into one corner, and she just maneuvers around accordingly. I think you would be surprised with what people can get used to or become accustomed to.
Yeah, that's fair.
It just becomes second nature after a while.
Mm-hmm. I thought when you said like a vacuum cleaner, I was like, oh, as she walks around, it's just mopping up all the dirt.
I kind of thought that too.
It probably is. Probably not going. I mean, I like for years now, because I've had I'm 37 and I've had these dreads since I was 19. So almost 20 years of my life. And especially when they were like at their longest, which again is like 6 feet of dreads. When I get in bed next to my partner, I just now naturally just coil it up. At the top of the pillow and just kind of place it there, and then it kind of stays there while I sleep, and that way it doesn't move around or like interfere with her in the night or anything like that, right? So I can completely believe that Rapunzel just has a routine where she kind of coils it up in the corner of the room and then sort of maneuvers back and forth accordingly to when she goes about her day, and then uncoils it and drops it out of the window when someone needs to climb up.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So I think 6 feet is interesting because I was looking up how long does human hair grow, and there is apparently a terminal length of human hair, but it is different from person to person, and it's largely genetic. It will stop growing uncut for most people between 2 to 7 years of growth, and it will usually stop an average of 2 to 3 feet. As of recording this, I have not cut my hair for, I think, 6 months. I typically keep my hair short because I have curly hair and it just gets all knotty and tangly if I don't cut it. And that's uncomfortable for me. But it is noticeably longer, but like I'm kind of thinking maybe it has stopped growing at this point. And so that's why I was interested in looking that up.
I did see that one of the world records that has come across my dashboard here was the 18 feet for hair as sort of the terminal velocity. Not velocity.
That's it can go real fast.
Terminal velocity for hair is 18 feet per second. So
the longest documented human hair belongs to Xia Xiaoping. It measures 5.627 meters or 18 feet and 5 inches. As of May 8th, 2004, and this is the Guinness World Record for the longest hair. She started growing it at the age of 13 in 1973. So yeah, 70 feet is quite a bit longer than that.
Yeah. I mean, is that there's the old saying that if you want your hair to grow, you need to cut it. Is that true? Is there any scientific basis in that, or is that just one of those old wives' tales?
I don't know. What I would guess, though, is that if you cut it, it will continue to grow, but that doesn't necessarily mean it will grow longer than it was. Because once it reaches a certain length, for most people, depending on their DNA, it will stop growing.
Yeah, I think once you sort of hit that terminal length, then there's not much you can do to sort of encourage it to grow longer. Now, all of this being said, maybe Rapunzel has some kind of genetic trait that just means her hair has no terminal length. There's no reason to believe that couldn't happen, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, you don't know if the record can be broken until somebody breaks it, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like there's a slim chance that any one of us is immortal. We won't know for sure until we die.
That's true.
That's
mathematically.
And who knows what lost techniques made using herbs and roots of the forests they once had in medieval Germany to encourage continued growth of the hair. Yeah. I can completely believe that there's some sort of lost knowledge there that we don't have, that we might rediscover someday.
I don't know why that just reminds me of Stregonona.
The danger is that if you let your hair grow that long, you increase the statistics that somebody will lock you in a tower and use it as a ladder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age, just for the novelty, right?
Oh, yeah. That's true. This would be a great, like, reality show. You have your terminal velocity, not terminal velocity. You have your terminal length hair, and they lock you in a tower, and now you just live stream a bunch of of your antics up in there.
Like the real world, but with fairy tale princesses?
Yeah. In fact, put all the fairy tale princesses in there, and then they could do like a, who amongst us would not watch the bitter rivalry between Rapunzel and Sleeping Beauty?
I know I would.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
Disney's probably done that.
Whichever one of them wins can fight Jake Paul.
Yeah,
yes. Mm-hmm.
In the most disappointing match of the decade.
Yeah. One of the other things I was thinking is that she could have just cut her hair, made it into like a 10-foot braid, and then just let it grow again, and just kept adding to this long rope until it is rope length.
And
that is true. Actually, we don't know. Like, it could be a what do they call it? An unreliable narrator. We don't know if she's just repeatedly farmed her own hair and turned it into a rope.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I would have done, is just make a ladder and then you have it already.
Yeah. What if this whole story was based around the account of Prince Charming, where it's like really trying very hard to make himself look really cool? And it's like, oh yeah, and I found this cool lady in the forest with 70-foot long hair, and you know what? We fell in love, but I fell out of the tower and it scratched my eyes out. And I was just wandering for years in this dark forest, just making it all up,
Alternatively, what if he was just really dumb, right? She's got a rope that's like 70 feet long.
Yeah.
It just looks vaguely like hair. Like, his eyesight wasn't great before he fell on the bramble bushes. He climbs up it. He's like, "Oh, this is amazing. It's made of hair." Gets to the top. They have a little kiss. He falls out. He scratches his eyes. And then from that point onwards, he just believes it's hair because he's not had a second look at it. Mm-hmm. And she just never corrects him because she kind of feels sorry for him.
Because she kind of feels sorry for him. I love it. I like that this portrays Prince Charming as basically John Smith.
It's what's charming about him. His childlike assumptions of things.
He's not smart. He's not particularly capable, but darn if he's not charming.
Yeah. It's right in the name.
Wow, this is just about me. I don't know.
I think we might have explored this topic as much as it is humanly possible to explore.
Yeah.
We have been very thorough.
In the future, this will be a primary source on Rapunzel.
That's true. This is the definitive
Wikipedia page in no time.
Yeah.
People shouldn't listen to us. If I haven't said that before, people should not listen to us. I mean, listen to the show, but don't.
Oh yeah, don't take anything we say as medical advice.
Don't use it for your homework.
Yeah.
We're not a reliable source.
We're not a reliable source. All right. Well, speaking of things that are not reliable, that one was better, I think.
It was.
Okay. We do have a second question this week, and I think we should move on from the golden locks of Rapunzel to talk about some bears, tying in yet another fairy tale.
That was a masterful one, yeah.
Thank you.
Right there.
Thank you.
I liked it.
Question 2 this week is, why don't we domesticate bears?
Well, define domesticate, because I think we might have done.
Oh, okay.
And the fact that you've said, "Ooh, okay," means that maybe you don't know about this. But
I'm interested in hearing what you have to say.
In World War II, the Polish were known to, not regularly, but did use bears.
Right.
In fact, there's a famous Polish bear called Private Wojciech, who fought alongside them, and he even got promoted, I believe, to corporal.
Yeah. This is great.
Good for that bear.
And obviously, he wasn't like charging at the Nazis with an AK or anything, which is evidence that he kind of was domesticated, because what they actually had him do was like fetch ammunition and stuff like that. So I mean, it's doable to, but presumably only in times of war, I guess.
Yeah,
you hit the nail on the head by opening with it depends what you mean by domesticated, right? Because we do not have bears domesticated on a species-wide scale. And that, I guess, is where the difference is. This is something I learned a couple weeks ago. So apparently, the difference between domesticated and tame has to do with basically evolution. So tame animals are individual wild animals that are conditioned to tolerate human presence, whereas domesticated animals are kind of like the entire species that is now genetically predisposed to live alongside humans.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where the difference is.
Right.
Right. So essentially the question is, why didn't our ancestors thousands and thousands of years ago think we'll choose that one instead of the doggies?
And that's really fascinating, because there isn't like a straightforward answer to that, because we didn't really choose to domesticate dogs either. Mm-hmm. They were just kind of more convenient, and then nature took its course. Yeah. From what I was reading.
Well, and I think a big part of it too is that a lot of bears tend to be a lot more solitary. So when you have a dog or even a cat, I mean, like the small animals that we have domesticated, they are much more tolerant of one another's company. Whereas if you had like 3 bears in a room, I don't think that they would really get along too well with each other.
That's fair.
That's a good point, yeah. But dogs are pack animals, right? So it's much easier to just change who's in the pack, I guess.
Yeah.
I think also, like, the elephant in the room here is that bears are really scary and dogs are, right? Like, let's be real. If you're like, well, you know, can I control this creature? Mm-hmm. Is there a chance it's going to eat my son? Like, those are questions that you're probably going to be asking yourself.
Well, yeah, and in history, like things that dogs were good at that humans or pre-humans, pre-hominids, I don't know, science, whatever. Mm-hmm. The reason that they would work with dogs is because they're good at hunting and they're good at fighting. You could use a dog as a guard dog or an alarm. And these are arguably things that bears can also do, but the niche was filled already by dogs, and it was easier to work with dogs.
Yeah.
Bears are like known to be good at fishing and finding honey and stuff like that, right? But I don't think you're going to convince it to give you the fish afterwards.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Unlike a dog.
Yeah.
And that's actually what I was thinking too, is that the amount of calories that it takes to care for one bear would be, I imagine, like having 10 dogs on your team, because they're going to need to eat a lot more to keep going. They are going to be much more lumbering and slow when they're chasing after something. Fish would be a really good example of something that a bear could catch pretty easily. But then, you know, like you said, they're not going to share it. It's a little thing.
Since you brought up finding honey, I have another on my list of famous historical tamed bears.
Oh.
There, in 1914, a Canadian cavalryman by the name of Lieutenant Harry Colborne purchased a bear at a train station that had become orphaned and was socialized to humans and couldn't really survive on its own in the wild. He named this bear Winnipeg Bear because it was adopted in Winnipeg, and it ultimately moved to the London Zoo, where it lived until 1934. The reason this bear was famous is that A.A. Milne's son, Christopher Robin, frequented this zoo and named his own stuffed bear Winnie after Winnipeg Bear. So Winnie the Pooh.
Adorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have trivia. I don't have science, I have trivia.
I mean, this next thing I'm about to mention, I don't know if it's very, very scientific per se, but I know a lot of people who have fairly large breeds of dogs. So things like German Shepherds and things like Golden Retrievers. I guess Golden Retrievers aren't huge, but like I know a lot of people with big dogs, like on the order of 150, like dogs that weigh more than me. And one of the things I hear kind of often from a lot of these dog owners is like, oh, you know, they don't always remember that they're not a puppy anymore, and they'll jump on people and they'll jump on me. And it's like, oh, it's fine. I'm expecting it. But it's like, imagine a bear that has forgotten that it is not a cub anymore. It would be like being run over by a Ford F-150.
And it just wants to sit on you.
Yeah.
What a sad image that is. You tamed this bear, it loves you, it sees you as like its papa, and then it jumps on you and kills you.
Oh yeah. No.
What a tragic.
And then it kind of
scenario.
bats at you, trying to be like, why are you asleep?
Yeah.
Why are you
I feel more sorry for the bear than the dead guy in this scenario.
It's like the stories or the images of the dog that waited for its master to come home for years.
Like from Futurama.
Yeah. Officially the worst episode of Futurama. Not that it's a bad episode, but I hate it anyway.
Yeah. It's a hard one to rewatch, even though it's great.
I had an idea for a children's book at one point, and I never wrote it because it would be blatant plagiarism. But I don't know, Ben, if you're aware of If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. Are you familiar with that children's book?
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, well, the idea is if you give a mouse a cookie, it will ask for a glass of milk, and then it will ask you for more things. And it's a cute little cartoon mouse it's illustrated and stuff. So my idea,
increasingly absurd demands, I should ask.
Yes, is it supposed to be like a cautionary tale? It's like give them an inch and they'll take a mile.
In a whimsical way, but yes. Yeah, and there is a sequel to this book called If You Give a Moose a Muffin, which is not to throw shade, but it's basically the same shtick repeated.
Yeah. So there's also If You Give a Pig a Pancake, which is also the same exact thing.
I didn't even know about that one. Okay. Well, my idea for the fourth installment, I guess, was If You Give a Bear a Bagel. And it is a 2-page long book. It is If You Give a Bear a Bagel, it will maul you. The end.
That's a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
What an ungrateful bear.
Yeah, what an ungrateful... I gave you a bagel. Come on.
Yeah, bears are omnivores. They could have eaten that bagel.
Can bears process carbs? Like, is that a...
I don't know.
Because obviously their diet is mostly meat and berries and stuff, I imagine, right?
They're omnivorous, so I think they could. I don't know that it would be the greatest thing for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of like one of those things where, like, humans are omnivorous, but there are a lot of things we can't eat and process, like grass and whatnot. So, cellulose.
Well, here's another point. Speaking of what you eating, because I was thinking maybe they might want to eat more carbs when getting ready for hibernation. I don't know if that's actually true, but it made me think of hibernation, and I thought, dogs don't hibernate. Would domesticated bears still hibernate? And would that would that be one of the reasons we didn't domesticate them, I suppose?
That's a really good point, actually.
That's a really good question. I don't think they would, right? Because the hibernation is a necessity thing, isn't it? They gather up food and then basically munch on it over the winter. Whereas if they lived in like your house or something, it would be climate controlled. Food would be available. I wonder if it would be like, how we're seeing a lot of insects are around at times when they traditionally haven't been because they're adjusting to the inevitable death of the planet. I wonder if bears would do the same thing if you like let them live in your house. They would just be like, okay, well, hibernation unnecessary then.
I just typed it into Google and I was curious. And so there's an article from NPR that says, I guess that circus bears will hibernate. Well, circus bears don't hibernate because they're, being sent from place to place and they have to be, continuously doing their shows and stuff. But when they are going on, so this specifically mentions about Siberia, but when they're going on the road across Siberia, maybe in a train or in a truck or whatever, they will sort of take catnap hibernations to kind of keep them going the way they should be going.
Okay.
But it also mentions like because the truck broke down and it was freezing cold, so they sort of naturally just hibernated. So I don't know if you keep them warm all year, maybe they just wouldn't.
So I guess they're inclined towards it, but not necessarily in need of it.
When bears are not, from what I have read in the past, bears are not actually true hibernators. A true hibernating species actually has like a chemical that kind of shuts down its need to eat seasonally. Whereas what bears do is actually go into a seasonal torpor, which is just they're conditioned to know that food is scarce. I'm going to prepare not to eat for a while. So if food is abundant year round, they don't need to do that.
This is another really good point. I just looked up, so polar bears do not seem to hibernate.
Oh.
So I guess we just got to domesticate polar bears, arguably the most dangerous bear.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, aren't polar bears one of the only creatures known to extensively stalk humans?
Yeah.
I've heard that, yeah.
They're persistent.
That is a horror movie waiting to happen. I can't believe no one's turned that into a horror movie.
I think I've seen a video that I think was just a real life horror movie of somebody trapped in the cabin of a truck or a helicopter or something, and a polar bear is ruthlessly trying to get to them, and they had to wait it out until something else came around to distract it.
Mm.
And most bears will be defensive of their territory or their young, but they're more afraid of you than, that whole adage, they're more afraid of you than you are of them. A polar bear will follow and try to kill you at all costs.
Mm-hmm. Life's tough in the Arctic.
That's fair.
Got to snack on what they can.
Is that it? They just want to eat you?
Probably. I don't know. I assume that's what they're after, because I know that with polar bears, it typically food is kind of like far between. So
it's true. Well, that's why it's surprising that they don't hibernate.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about, though, is that because we've never really tried, like on a large scale, to domesticate polar bears, I wonder if or not polar bears in specific, just bears in general. But I wonder if they are one of those animals that has like sort of a genetic predisposition to not being domesticated. Because I know that this is something that comes up a lot when they talk about, oh, well, why have we never domesticated zebras? It's like, well, they sort of resist it in a way. So I don't know. I wonder.
Yeah, I would imagine like the fact that they're solitary and not pack animals, the fact that they don't, because there are some, like, for example, if you look at wild dogs or wild cats, or foxes are a good example of this, right? I don't know how common foxes are in the US, but in the UK, foxes are very, very common. And a lot of people are surprised to learn that almost the entirety of the fox population in the UK lives in cities. You never see them, because they only come out at night and scavenge for food from like dustbins and stuff like that. But it just goes to show that like they are predisposed to live on the fringes of human society anyway. And so it's not a crazy leap to be like, okay, well, you could easily tame a fox and its distant cousins have already been domesticated. Whereas there is no, like, bears are not hanging around in London, right? They're gonna, they live in the woods as far away from humans as possible and do their own thing. And if humans come along, they either kill them or run away.
Yeah.
That's similar to how raccoons are here.
Yeah.
They're really kind of used to people being around.
I don't think anyone's tried to domesticate a raccoon, though. So
you shouldn't. You shouldn't. There's a great video I just recently watched.
I don't know anything about raccoons. Why shouldn't you domesticate raccoons?
Well, you shouldn't try to keep a pet raccoon, at least. Everybody thinks that you want not everybody, but a lot of people think they want a pet raccoon, and they don't. It's like having the most destructive, intelligent 2-year-old that will always be that way as long as you have it. They know how to open everything. They will break everything. They're cute. They should stay wild.
Yeah.
There is definitely a portion of your listening audience for whom you just made it sound better for them.
I am aware of this.
Some people get a raccoon.
Well, that's on them.
If you have a pet raccoon, write us and let us know. When you brought up zebras, it reminded me of another thing I had written down, that apparently there are 3 types of domesticated animals. There are animals that are adapted to a human environment, such as dogs, cats, or like guinea pigs. There are animals farmed as food, so cows, sheep, pigs, goats. And then there are animals drafted for work purposes, like horses, camels, and donkeys. And that kind of led to the idea of, if we wanted to domesticate bears, of species-wide, get them to be evolved into a creature that can live in tandem with human beings, it would, at this point, have to be a concentrated effort that we do intentionally over many generations.
Yeah.
Because there is no need for us right now to be accidentally working with bears that much, I suppose.
Unless Germany invades from the south.
Then,
you draft in the bears.
We need to send the bears into battle.
I think that also is just one of those things that kind of shows us that, is there a need to domesticate bears? Because they really wouldn't be all that great for food. The main thing I guess they would probably be good for is companionship, and maybe if they would let you ride them, which I guess I've seen in the circus.
The mount is definitely the option, right?
Yeah.
I don't trust anyone who says I would not want to ride a bear.
Yeah.
Like if that's your opinion, have you been like that since childhood?
Yeah. Who did this to you?
If the bear will let you, why would you not?
Exactly.
Well, I would think in terms of like they could be your bodyguard, they could be your protector, right? That would be a reason to have a bear around.
Like Yorick Berenson and his Dark Materials.
Sure.
He was a polar bear, but he was like a magic polar bear, so you know.
The last historical tamed bear that I have on my list here is in 1902 or 1903. Reports vary.
Mm-hmm.
Teddy Roosevelt was allegedly hunting and had found a cornered bear and refused to shoot it because it was helpless and unsporting. And a local store owner made a plush bear to display in their storefront window and called it Teddy's Bear. Mm-hmm. And this was the genesis of stuffed bears, teddy bears.
Yeah.
That is an incredibly wholesome bit of etymology there.
Yeah.
And I think that makes for a very nice pet because A, doesn't maul you. B, you don't have to feed it. C, it's not going to sit on you and crush your bones. I think it's win-win.
Pre-domesticated.
Yeah.
Pre-domesticated bear. Yeah. I like that. I don't know. The show has a weird tone because we laugh about really depressing world-ending things, and then occasionally we have wholesome trivia.
Yeah.
Getting the whole spectrum.
Get the whole of it. Yeah.
What a great show.
And thank you for saying that. Here's $20.
Mm.
All right. Listeners, let us know this week. Could Rapunzel domesticate bears? I'm gonna guess probably no. But if you have any thoughts on that or anything else we talked about, you can email us at feedback@vaguelyscientific.com, or you can comment on our blog, or you can like us on Facebook, or send us a message through Blue Sky @vaguelyscientific. Hey, Jim, where do we get all these wacky questions?
We get them from you, the listener. And if you have a question that needs to be answered in a vaguely scientific manner, you can email us at questions@vaguelyscientific.com. If you want to get our episodes the minute that they're released, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and all the other great places the cool podcasts like to hang out. And subscribing and leaving feedback really helps us out, and so does telling your friends.
Tell all your friends.
Our vaguely musical intro is composed by Anthony Pizzelli, and don't forget to check out our merch store over at vaguelyscientific.threadless.com. It's going to be summer, you got to do a whole new wardrobe, might as well. I mean,
yeah.
If you're going to get mauled by a bear, you might as well look nice.
Who wants to do laundry? Just buy all new clothes.
That's also true, you know what?
Yeah. So thank you very much for Ben for making time to be here with us. Ben, if people want to hear more from you, where do they find you?
You can find me on the official Blood on the Clocktower YouTube channel and Twitch channel. I stream every Thursday, and we have a new video go up every Monday. And you can also find me running Blood on the Clocktower on a whole bunch of other channels, including No Rules Barred.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, for Vaguely Scientific, I am Derek.
I'm Jim.
I've been Ben.
Hooray, and this episode is over, and the good team has won.
Toodaloo, everybody.
How many of those did you roll your eyes?
No, I thought they were great. Honestly, the number you would I mean, not to like be insulting, but the bar is very low.
Okay.
When it comes to it.